Hello and welcome to this very special interview. Joining me today is Anuj Puri, who's the real estate guru, one of the leading voices on real estate in this country. He's also the chairman of Anarock. COVID-19 has had an impact in multiple ways across the economy. Real estate is no different. And in fact, if one goes by a report that Anuj and his team put out recently, the situation seems rather grim. To understand the impact of COVID-19 on real estate, I have a few questions for you, Anuj. Thank you very much for joining me. My first question, your report, as I mentioned, paints a very grim picture. How serious is the issue at the real estate side of the economy?
First of all, thanks for having me here, Vivek. It's always very nice to interact with you. I look forward to these interactions and wish all your viewers safe staying at home. So it is a difficult sector, Vivek. There's no doubt about it. Just like any other physical sector, this one is going through a huge amount of difficulty. And also, it's a sector which on the residential side requires a huge amount of wealth to be able to go out and buy. And, in these circumstances, these scenarios, the sentiment really sways. And I say sways is because, it started from extremely negative. And it is very interesting, Vivek, what we are finding out is that there are positivity that is starting to come from various quarters. And I wanted to sort of highlight some of these positive things. Otherwise, it looks like it is all doom and gloom. But 4 or 5 things there. One, interestingly, Vivek, NRI, huge amount of inquiry has started. I won't say sale has started, but inquiry, maybe because, the rupee has become weaker, maybe because the US, UK, there are likely to be more job losses there and the economy is going to go down. That's going to be a bit of a problem. And then when you go a little bit deeper into the survey of the actual consumer, you're finding actually they are quite okay to have a discussion on buying residential today to say, look, the stock market has gone down. My parents have always been saying, my spouse has been saying, under these circumstances, I wish I had actually bought it because I'm not sure going forward, how secure the environment is going to be. Had I got a roof over my head, which I owned, it may have been, even more better. So it is true. What you're saying is that the situation is troublesome, but, there are some glimmers of hope. And as we go through this session, I'll enumerate a few more.
Sure. Anuj, at least as far as residential is concerned, we were beginning to see some traction building up, right? In the last few months.
That's right.
Especially, in areas like Noida, where I'm talking to you from, you suddenly started seeing front page ads coming from real estate developers. You've talked about the inventory numbers in your report, and if you could take us through some of those as well. The whole ghost town that it had become, there seemed to be an enhanced amount of activity happening. But again, with this lockdown, that seems to be almost like a body blow, right? Because it's all completely stopped right now, and we don't know when it will start again. So in that backdrop and across other parts of the country as well, because it's not just one market, right? It's all, several markets out there. But do you see residential, with the supply lines getting hit, how do you see the impact on prices going forward?
So very interesting, Vivek. You're absolutely right. We'd started to see the residential starting to now come back, and consolidation of the developers had happened. Many of those who had not performed in the earlier regime had exited, and many serious players, many corporate players had really come into the game, and they were focused on customer care, delivery, financial discipline, governance. And we had started to see that the sector, certainly on the residential, on the commercial, it was anyway streamlined. On the residential, it was getting streamlined. And just like with any other business, this has also had a blow on it.
Yes, go ahead, Anuj. I think I lost you in the middle. Can you just repeat that point?
Yes, absolutely. So, it just like any other segment, the real estate has also suffered in COVID-19, just prior to COVID-19, the residential sector, we had started to see had started to show green shoots. The developers who had not performed in the past had exited. Many of the corporate developers had come in, and they were really starting to boost the sales, take care of the customers, focus on delivery, financial discipline, governance. And we were just seeing is that this sector was really starting to come back to maturity. And then this COVID-19, has hit the sector. I would say 3 or 4 things on this occasion, Vivek. One, a lot of the weaker developers had really exited. So, these are a lot more stronger developers, the Godrej, Tata, Mahindra, Piramal, a lot of the new ones who had started to come in, like the Birlas, the Mittals, the Munjals of Hero, who had started to come in. So, largely well capitalized in that. Second is, the government really came in a big way with this fund called a Swami Fund. This is nearly a 13,000 crore fund to make sure that if there are any projects which are half completed and are still net worth positive, they give the top up money to make sure that they get completed, so that the consumer does not left with incomplete apartments in their hand. And the third is, we're looking at it, many of these listed developers, if you look at their balance sheet, really, they were making very thin margins in that. And hence we had thought is that, price stability perhaps has come in because there aren't those many margins left in this business. I do feel is that, this may be temporarily hit. And I'll also talk about during this temporary period, what is going to happen, both on the sales side and on the completion side. And I am hoping that, once we come back, just like what China has, there's data that has come out yesterday from Capital Economics in China. And they have said is that in the top 30 cities of China in December pre-COVID, they were selling 5,000 apartments a day. And that had come to almost zero from 17th of January. And in March, they've come back to 3,000 apartments. So it has started to come back quite quickly at 60% of the sentiment due to improvement in the sentiment. In this period, Vivek, we think is definitely during the lockdown and perhaps a little longer, there will be very little that will be done on the sale. But what is interesting is, Vivek, that even on the completion, because there is no labor, because the supply chain from China is broken, so the escalators, the elevators, a lot of the building material factories are closed. By the time they get fully operational, it is going to be 4 to 5 months. So really, both the supply and the demand is going to go down, as a result of which your unsold inventory still continues to remain, pretty sort of healthy state where it was before we went into COVID-19.